Hey traders and TradingView community, I'm going to go over Bitcoin now just as we start the week. Don't forget, if you want to learn to trade, go underneath this video. I'm going to be live with my pro-multi-asset day trader partner. Just shortly, we're going to be on Zoom. So Bitcoin against the US dollar coming into this week. Well, we had rallies fairly recently. I mean, throughout the weekend, you've come up slightly. You can see going into Saturday, a little bit of positive impetus. I think largely the fact that Trump may get into presidency is going to supply a little bit of the long side factor potentially. There's no given with that, but it does look like the soft landing plus that is going to be positive for crypto. He's openly said he wants the US to be the home of crypto. He believes in it. He's not going to try and lessen it or restrict it. And that will enable more growth. Now, that may feed into the markets. And with sentiment inflows, for whatever reason, you should never think they're a given. You shouldn't think, oh, just because he might be the president, that means it's definitely going to be the case that this will just keep rising. Because it could be the opposite. You could drop back enormously back to your key MAs on a serious retracement. At this point, the fact that you've got the Fed now also giving you all these positive sort of rhetoric speeches, if you like, with more and more positive economic data, it's supplying strength because traders essentially will go risk on. There's a lot of news about Trump coming in and then that causing a real risk on environment. So if that is the case going throughout the latter stages of the year, you would expect to break this high on a push up. You'd probably teeter around. You'd probably have some profit taking at that point. You'd probably have traders say, "Oh, enough is enough," and liquidate some longs. You might get some short side bias there, albeit fairly dangerous in my opinion. And that'll probably be an area of contention. If you do get more positive inflows into the market, you would probably expect a little bit of a drop and then a teeter, and then eventually you would go higher. Now, anything above this high, okay, relies purely on, like I said, overwhelming positive sentiment. Okay, so that's something positive in the news that brings you up there. At this point, sentiment-wise, I don't think there's enough to pull Bitcoin down. I think if you do have something come out of the blue, then it may just drop Bitcoin really quickly and quite flatly. But at this point, it's just not there. So all you can really do is look at where you might take profit or lock in gains and perhaps re-enter into the market long if you wanted to buy Bitcoin. We previously spoke about falls here and the light support, which you could see across the board. It's clear that this level supplied what you needed, okay, for a bounce. Now, that came off the back of the Gox creditors situation and all the fear. It waned pretty quickly, and I think really after that, just more positive rhetoric has pushed this up. As of late, going off from a cooling market and a few Fed comments, you've started to pull down as Bitcoin has continued rallying, which is quite interesting because mostly they've gone in tandem all the way up. You can see you're starting to rise slightly, but you don't really have a push on your US stock market, for example. So, they're acting slightly differently at the moment, but nonetheless, you do have a real risk on environment with Bitcoin particularly. It has dropped going into today, but it's now recovering slightly. I would say if it was really, really going to be negative sentiment here, you probably would have seen this drop much further through. But the fact that it's reacting so early tells you that there's a bit of long side positive bias still there. And that's why I mentioned probably, there's a reasonable chance you'll get back up to these highs. The rejection you see there, like I said, probably would have been more forceful if it was going to do anything at all. As always with Bitcoin, you should trade small. It's a HVA. Naturally, therefore, it can be dangerous at times. So I would say if you rise up here and you've had it long, I would definitely close it. Like I said, it can go higher. Maybe the Trump sentiment will come in or anything else, but you don't know for certain. There's no way you can absolutely be sure that that is going to be the case 100%. But what you can be sure of is that lots of times before, the larger body of the market has exited longs at that point. Otherwise, the market wouldn't fall, okay? Or at least larger short entries have been taken up. Mostly, if you're going to liquidate a long, you're effectively short, okay, because you're selling out your order in the market. So I would look to exit near a 70K if you're going to hold longs. If you're going to be someone who's going to buy, okay, you do technically have, it would depend what would happen with this high, but you can see lower lows and lower highs accordingly. So technically you have a downtrend, technically, but it's very flat. So I would say, if you do get some sentiment that pulls you down, it's in my eye, it's still fairly early to buy, because if you look at the long-term move, you're still quite high up. It might be the case that if this trajectory continues, you do end up in line with this really key support level. So that may be a very ideal long zone to scale in, because not only would you have a technical bias and an investor long bias based on a positive sentiment overall bias, so a long-term belief in a push up, you would be going off technical factors like a continued downtrend, because that is exactly what you would have. Okay, on these, technically you have actually got a high there. Okay, but it's very marginally higher than the next one. But nonetheless, from a technical perspective, that's what you're looking at. So I wouldn't buy unless you get a massive fall. You need to come down to at least 50. If you're buying early, I'm not saying it won't just pop up as soon as you come down here. It very well may, and do that possibly. But I'm just saying, if you're looking for a better long zone, and you'll probably get your higher MAs start to creep up, then I would probably do it on that technical basis. Okay, so in line with your trend lines, and you would also be dip buying in what is a very strangely shaped long-term uptrend. Okay, because it is technically going up over time, higher highs, higher lows. So I like it long there, and I would kill it off nearer 70,500, more or less. Key support there goes in line well, okay, and that is what's going to form my bias. If it does become the case that you fall here first, and then you get Trump in, and it pushes up the momentum and sentiment for Bitcoin, then it may be a better concoction. I would say if you're going to add after that, it would need an extreme crash like it had before. Whether that will happen or not is absolutely debatable. You would probably find your key MAs here, bend over like that, and end up there. So 2 clear long zones for me. But you would need a considerable fall, because if you don't have a considerable fall, you're not going to get value on your entry. You're going to be buying a stupid high price. Even if it does go up, statistically, if you keep buying at highs, you'll be far worse off. So I hope that helps, guys. If you want to learn to trade, go underneath free trainings there. I'm going to be live on Zoom with VetTrader, and it'll be fantastic. See you soon.